Major funding for these programs is provided by the CUNY TV Foundation, Capital One Bank, Geneva Burns, Gian Tomasi and Webster, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Perfect Building Maintenance, the Witkoff Group, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Greenberg Traurig, LLP. Additional funding is provided by AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, Colliers International New York City, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG Partners, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Eastern Union Funding, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Herrick Feinstein LLP, Hersha Hospitality Trust, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides Centurion Holdings, Margolin Weiner and Evans LLP, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, New Banks, People's United Bank, Popular Community Bank, RBS Citizens Bank, SJB Properties, Sterling & Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, Urban American, and These Friends.
New York City is undergoing so much development. There's residential development in Manhattan, in the boroughs, everywhere around. There's also other developments. There's the Hudson Yards, there's the Barclays Center. There's a lot of things happening. So today, with the assistance of my executive producer, Lori Golub, she has brought together for me and for you to meet with these individuals, or four wonderful ladies who are going to tell us what's happening and what they're doing in New York City. Today, my guests include Melissa Birch, who is the Executive Vice President at Forest City Ratner Companies, Pam Samuels, who is the Senior Vice President at the Related Companies, Melissa Pienko, who is the Executive Vice President at Gotham Organization, and last but not least, the young lady who helped bring all of these people, the executive producer, Lori Golub, who's the COO and General Counsel at HFZ Capital. So, since you are the executive producer, why did you want to bring these three other ladies? Tell us what they're doing and what you're doing today.
I thought I would bring together a group of four experienced developers who sit from different angles and are so relevant today in New York City development. I thought each one of them brought a different perspective, and they're working on really exciting and fascinating projects, and I thought they could bring a different angle and a different perspective to offer.
You know, and they are. Each one is, okay? We have our friend from Columbus, Ohio, okay, who, you know, has been here a number of years, and, you know, working on some very small little projects. The acquisition of the Barclays Center, all of the retail over there, the modular construction, the first 32-story modular construction in Brooklyn, right next to the Barclays Center. Tell me a little bit about the modular construction.
Well, you ask who would believe, and we did spend about 2 years in an intensive research and development
Did you use an Erecta for this?
Do we use an
You went to the Gilbert Brothers for the Erecta?
We did have a company outing when we first introduced this concept to the company, and part of it was actually simulating this with Erector sets and Legos. So that analogy has been made, but what in fact we are doing is, which is probably not surprising, is far more sophisticated. We are launching in the Brooklyn Navy Yard our own modular factory that will be fabricating these modules. This is really a further development of a trend that you see happening in New York, which is a trend towards prefabrication. So whether it's prefabricated wall panels, whether it's bathroom pods, or whether it's Forest City Ratner's full-on modular solution, where we are fully fabricating all of these units in a factory setting, 100% union, there is a trend towards figuring out how to improve the quality and decrease costs through prefabrication.
Do you think you'll be utilizing this concept in other properties at Forest City Rathman? Because you were involved with the DK on DeKalb Avenue over there, which was not a prefab, and you were also involved with the Geary Tower on Lower Manhattan. Do you see the company moving in that direction?
Absolutely. We see this first building that we're undertaking next to the Barclay Center, which will be 32 stories, the tallest modular building in the world when completed at the end of 2014. This building is really the pilot, and it's our intention to prove out that modular can deliver on the benefits and on the quality and the market acceptance that we believe it can. And then we'd like to use that method to roll out for the remainder of the project, which are 6,000 units, 14 additional buildings. And beyond our pipeline, we believe that once we prove this out, that this will be, this will have application for the work that all of the women on this panel are doing, whether it's, Melissa, Lori, or Pamela's work.
Now, you just finished this Gotham West, which is a huge complex, occupies nearly an entire city block on the west side, on Hell's Kitchen, as certain people wouldn't call it Hell's Kitchen. And you have like 52 different designs. You have a variety of units. Tell me a little bit about that type of construction, because prior to this, you and your company built a fantastic building called The Corner on the corner of 72nd Street, which was a luxury building. So, and this building that you've done on Gotham West, what's really interesting, because I'm really a big advocate of affordable housing, which what you're doing over there, and look at the amount of affordable housing you create over there. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Gotham West has been a really exciting project for us to work on.
Originally called Television City, correct?
Studio City.
Studio City.
And actually the deal files up until the day we closed were called Studio City, which made no sense as there was nothing about television studios left in the project. This was done in collaboration with the City of New York. We purchased the land from them. As a result of that collaboration, the project does have a substantial amount of affordable housing. What's particularly unique about it is that the affordable housing, most new rental buildings in the city have the 20%, what people call low-income housing, which is affordable to people who make,
40% of AMI.
Or 50 or 60%. In addition to that, which we have here as well, is we actually have housing for people who make sort of between $57,000 and $160,000 a year.
Which is what the other Melissa is going to have also in your.
That's right.
In addition to that, though, we actually have 550 luxury units.
And you have a school.
And we have a school. We didn't build the school, though. The school was just part of the site. It was built by another construction company. You referenced earlier The Corner. The luxury units at Gotham West are actually quite similar in terms of the quality level and the finishes as The Corner.
Who's moving into New York City's apartments, okay? Because it's become a little unaffordable,
That's
okay?
true.
When DeKalb was built, I think the rents were $40. People were surprised because of Avalon Bay. Today, the rents probably in Gotham West have to be in their 70s?
Yeah.
In the 70s. What are rents going to be in?
Rents in Brooklyn have gone from, when we opened up 80 DeKalb, we were able to achieve around $50 per square foot. And now if you look at the marketplace today in Brooklyn, you're looking at high 50s or low 60s. So the market has really transformed. And in large part because of what's happened in Manhattan, but mostly because Brooklyn has become a real residential destination. People don't apologize for living in Brooklyn. It's not just a value play anymore. It's really a lifestyle neighborhood choice.
It's Brooklyn we call it Brooklyn by choice in our office. It used to
Exactly.
be Brooklyn by default because you couldn't afford Manhattan. Now people actually really want to live in Brooklyn and they want the luxury apartment
Now,
buildings.
the interesting thing is, Ms. Samuels, the related companies who have been visionaries in New York City and other parts of the country really have not entered the borough of Brooklyn.
True.
Nor really Queens. The majority of their involvement is in the city, is in Manhattan.
Queens, we have Long Island City presence with
Right.
a very large affordable project. And
Right, that's the new Hunters Point,
Yes.
which has just started over there, but
Yes.
I'm saying existing buildings
The
today.
existing portfolio has very little in terms of the main related name. We really do focus on Manhattan. We like to kind of strengthen the depth that we have in our existing portfolio. We believe in Manhattan. We're urban builders. We're neighborhood builders. So I guess in that respect, we look at 2 or 3 different tranches. One are what are great residential neighborhoods and where would people like to live? rent to own, if you will, in that kind of mentality. So we have projects undergoing in Tribeca, which is a very high rent district, Midtown, all surrounding Hudson Yards, anywhere from the 20s to the 40s of the West Side corridor. Again, around Lincoln Center is an area that we like. We like the whole West Side corridor.
Now, rental, you're more of a condo.
Yes.
Why are you condo, and you're a mixed use?
Oh,
okay?
we have many tranches.
And you have all
of
different
business.
tranches because
Yes.
a number of the buildings in the High Line today are being built as rentals, okay? And then you have certain ones which are, going to be condominiums.
Exactly. So for example, we have a project on 28th Street that's up and coming with a design by Zaha Hadid that will be spectacular in terms of both its design, its presence, its size, architectural merit, and I think that is indicative of who's buying surrounding Hudson Yards. But there's so many different levels of product there, so it's really just a tremendous force of shifting what the center of Manhattan will look like.
For us, we are still very bullish on Manhattan. We are bringing over 1,500 units to market in the next couple of years. We're trying to keep up with the insatiable demand that's coming, surprisingly to many, from families who want to stay and live in New York, as well as people coming from overseas and outside of New York. But there is a huge demand for large-scale apartments in New York. So people can stay in the city and in Manhattan and raise their families.
So who would you say are the tenants that you think are going to be in the Barclays, in the Atlantic Yards, and who are going to be over there in the BAM cultural section? What type of, what's the nature? I mean, are they going to be from Columbus, Ohio? Or are they gonna,
They're from all over. You know what's so
But
interesting?
that is the comment.
What's so interesting is that when we built our 80 DeKalb project, we spent a long time really charting and figuring out where the folks in the building came from. And about a third of them relocated from within Brooklyn. So people that used to live in a brownstone or in a walk-up building that now wanted to live in a luxury, high-rise, amenitized product. And it really was the first of its kind, along with the Avalon and the Equity Residential Project. About a third was coming from Manhattan, and a third was coming from around the country with a significant amount of international. And what we found was that a lot of the international folks, especially the folks from London, seemed to really respond to the scale and to the neighborhood attributes of Brooklyn. We often heard the comment that Manhattan, was too dense, the scale was too different from what they were used to, and they found Brooklyn to be a nice neighborhood. So apart from the places where people are coming, the professions are what you might expect in terms of luxury rental living. It's singles, it's young couples, professionals. There's quite a bit of folks.
Are we having people, let's say, closer to my age, who may have relocated to Florida or other places and now want to come back so they could be closer to their families? Do you see that too?
On a limited basis. I haven't seen that as a major group within who we're renting to in Brooklyn. It's really been a lot of young people. And I'm not talking about college graduates, but more, or the recent college graduates, but more the 30-something, 40-something, the people that want to start thinking about settling down, the rent-to-buy crowd that Pam had referenced, people that are really looking to put down some roots. And while they might come to our buildings, which are rental buildings, as a stop on that journey, I think they're really looking to check out neighborhoods, amenities, locations, schools, and once they find something that makes sense, then perhaps move into a condo or another type of for-sale product.
So are we doing condos in, like we would say, the flavors? I mean, because you and the related companies have One Madison, which is a luxury condo, high price. Then you and Vornado have another condo on Madison Avenue, and then you have a variety of, you have the condo on 2nd Avenue that you're building on the former Crane site, which is a different price level.
Yeah.
So it's like you're attracting different price levels for different neighborhoods, correct?
I think actually it's the neighborhoods that attract the price levels. So depending on the neighborhood, different neighborhoods and locations command different pricing. As you know, in real estate, it always comes back to
Right. I mean,
location.
look, Madison, One Madison is in a great location.
Spectacular,
It's a fantastic location. Ironically, I remember when the property was acquired because I was at the closing when it was a McDonald's and okay, it was a McDonald's and a nonprofit next door, and nobody knew, and these people were not capable who built the initial development. But you know, and 51st Street and Second is a different type.
Yes, that's Midtown
Okay,
East.
that's more Midtown East, and it's not truly, you know, it's more of a suburban. It's not more of a family neighborhood. You know, there are people over there. Now, 72nd Street, the corner, it's a family neighborhood. I mean,
We actually got a whole range of people there. We got a lot of young people whose parents were helping to subsidize their rent because it was a really expensive building. We got empty nesters coming back to the city wanting to be near grandchildren. You know, the Upper West Side is a really child-focused neighborhood, and people want to be near their kids. You know, what was interesting when we did 72nd Street is these were people who could afford to buy but chose to rent. And I think we're seeing that more and more now, where there are people, I mean, if you want to rent at Gotham West and want a one-bedroom apartment, you need to earn $160,000 a year. That's a lot of money. And what we're seeing more and more is people who are at the point in their lives where they might have previously chosen to buy an apartment are instead renting because they can get a really high quality in a rental building, and they're not totally sure where they want to put down roots yet. And then maybe it's a step along the way and they end up buying a condo somewhere else.
There's also something else happening, which I think dates back probably to 2005, to answer your question about this bifurcation of the luxury market. I mean, I can remember the luxury market really being capped at $1,100 or $1,200 a foot until Vornado's project, Beacon, announced $2,200 a foot, and everyone looked at each other in disbelief. Then we bought a project when I was at Claret called 220 Central Park South that was based on really the fact that there's a scarcity of sites, development sites and land with direct views to Central Park. And 15 CPW came along. They were really the first to probably break the $5,000 a foot barrier. Then 157 came along and increased it to 6,000. And it's grown so that it's not, New York and London are commensurate with expecting, call it, as high as $10,000 a foot rents and not blinking. So what does that do? It also made luxury a different definition, for one. And two, it occurred at the same time that downtown became the most desirable residential neighborhood in Manhattan. And so there, luxury that used to be, again, $1,200 to $1,500 also became $3,000, $4,000.
you know, downtown,
Yes.
which you relate, downtown is like a tale of two different cities.
Absolutely.
There are different sections of downtown. People call Tribeca, but it's not really Tribeca. You know,
Well, it's bifurcated.
it's
South
a
and North Tribeca.
right. You know, so it's a bifurcated situation. It's the same situation in downtown Brooklyn. You're in the BAM Cultural Center. You're a little bit further away, and then otherwise we're really in Fort Greene. So you know, we're in different neighborhoods, and I think everything is also related to, which is happening a lot in the suburbs, is the TOD. Transit-oriented development is very, very important because that's what's allowing for Brooklyn, why people go to the Barclays Center, why people go there on the situation. That's why people will go to Lower Manhattan, because of the 17 trade lines and the path and all the other situation. So here's the question: how hard is it for developers like you and your companies to find property today to develop? You know, there's a scarcity of land. You know, we're not building more land. You know, the only way you built Battery City Park was we took dirt out of and we built the World Trade Center, so we're not really doing that. How difficult is it? You know, there are X number of parking lots that we can build something on. How difficult? And I know when reading your bio that when you joined Forest City Ratner, you were knocking on doors to take people's buy their property from them.
Yes, well, to address your question about building land, both Pam and I happen to be working on projects where we are creating new land. We're building over rail yards. And I do think that you will find, look, this is not easy. I don't know that, that either one of us would probably run to build over another rail yard. It's extremely complicated. But I do think that that is an outgrowth of this phenomenon that you can't create new land in Manhattan. So how were you actually identifying these sites, creating the sites? We're going to ultimately have 6 residential towers on top of a working rail yard for the Long Island Railroad associated with our Atlantic Yards project. That is significant. In addition, the private sector developers are also being asked to provide a lot of the infrastructure associated with this development, when in perhaps a previous era that really wouldn't have been part of the responsibility
Yes.
of the developer. But whether it's subway entrances, sewers, bridges, this is all a part of creating the land to support these new projects.
Right. That's why I actually love working at Related. They're really good at complex infrastructure. I mean, prior to joining them, I had worked on a project called, it's now known as 1 Hudson Yards, but I was leading a team to build the 7 station, which is the ventilation tower that brought the 7 to Hudson Yards. And in terms of finding land, really for companies as large as Related, we can look for small sites, but we're also very well suited for the infrastructure / large-scale commercial sites. And the upzoning of Hudson Yards leads to the need for certain companies that have the ability to handle complexity. So for example, in Hudson Yards, if the base 18 FAR is commercial or the base 21 FAR is commercial, there's very few firms that have the depth that could bring that to market in order to even yield the residential, the small residential VIG on above. So these mixed-use districts are well suited to firms like ours. And at the same time, you know, the bread and butter of the business is still 80-20 rental housing, 80% market, 20% affordable. So there's a lot of, you know, dynamic things happening.
We're building both. I mean, we do both renovations of existing historic properties as well as ground-up development. We've got several ground-up sites in the city right now in different parts of Manhattan. And we're looking for new and inventive ways to find sites to acquire. We've been doing joint ventures now today with churches and synagogues and not-for-profits, many of whom have untapped air rights. And so there's opportunities to create land where none existed before through joint venture development.
You bring up an interesting thing about air rights and development, and one of the topics that is, you know, one of Mike's initiative that he'd like to accomplish before he leaves his term of office is the Midtown rezoning. What's the thoughts of all 4 of you or any of you on the Midtown rezoning?
I think it's inevitable. I think that the corridor is a very important one. It's underutilized. I don't know that commercial is the best and highest use. It seems it would do better as a 24-hour district with a significant amount of residential, just because of the floor plates of some of the older buildings. Again, if you talk about TOD, it radiates, right? Between Grand Central District and the Central Business District, it needs a bonus mechanism. The question is, how flexible should that bonus mechanism become, and when should it be, you know, implemented based on everything else happening? Because
of its proximity to mass transit, I think it's an important area to give that kind of flexibility for new development. I think it will restore that area to having the prominence that it should in the office market.
Relating to something that Pam said and something that Forest City has been, you know, Bruce has been a major visionary in this, and Mary Ann, was, you know, when they took the East River Plaza. No one was able to do anything over there, and Blumenfeld wanted to do something, and finally it came out it was a need, because it was a copper wire factory that was worthless and no one was doing anything. It's a great shopping center. And also on 125th Street, Ratner built some properties over there. And the Gotham organization has been very active in the West Side, in the Harlem area. There is the Columbia rezoning, you know, and there could be, and there should be, because there's going to be so much development over there. And, you know, the related companies have been involved with Roosevelt Island, and, you know, with the Hudson companies who built 6 towers over there, and you have some potential on building some more. But, you know, can we see Governor's Island, perhaps?
Governor's Island is tough because it can't have residential use. So unless they change, that's my understanding of it at least, unless they change the zoning, you've got to figure out a very creative use to have on that island to sort of motivate developers to want to spend the money to do it.
I mean, but you know, if you look at Roosevelt Island, which really it was truly, you know, it came out in 1972. Where it was built as affordable housing, you know, it was truly tax shelter and affordable housing. Now, you know, we're talking close to 50 years later, 45 years later, the Cornell Technion is going to take up, but after that, there's not going to be much space left on Roosevelt Island. But how about Queens? I mean, what about, I know Related has the Hunters Point situation. Long Island City has seen over there, and, you know, Forest City has truly been the Brooklyn visionary, but they've also been involved with Queens in a lot of retail.
We've developed in all 5 boroughs.
In all 5 boroughs, even in Staten Island,
yes.
where there's a discussion, and there's nothing negative about Staten Island. Staten Island, it's a transportation problem.
Yeah.
How have your companies thought of, I mean, because Forest City's, headquartered in Cleveland, what about the Jersey Shore? Has there been thoughts about the Jersey Shore? Related's never really been there. Forest City hasn't been there. I don't think you and Zeal have truly been at the Jersey Shore. Not Jersey Shore, I'm talking about Jersey City, Hoboken, Edgewater, and so on. I know that one day, Gotham a couple years ago, after I did Joel's show, he built something out in Westchester, and it wasn't the best deal that they ever did.
That may be the case. It may have been before my time there.
It was.
So I have no responsibility.
I don't blame any of you.
Our perspective is that because of rising prices for luxury condominium in New York City and Manhattan particularly, there's still such great opportunity here. And while you may be able to afford cheaper land costs when you go to submarkets or outer boroughs and New Jersey, your construction costs are the same. And so you're really looking in a differential between capping out at $1,200 or $1,300 a foot in some of these lesser margins for markets for luxury product, as opposed to in Manhattan, where the numbers continue to climb, and you're seeing product above 3,000 a foot, above 4,000 a foot, above 5,000 a foot, and so the opportunities, I think, are still enormous in Manhattan.
I mean, there is a swath of land available in Coney Island, but the negative on Coney Island is the transportation.
Right.
It's close to an hour on transportation, and then there's also land available in East New York, which is also a transportation and an urban situation over there. But now Bushwick, Ridgewood, I mean, all these other neighborhoods have become meccas over there.
Well, so many of these neighborhoods have opened up, I think, for two reasons. One is that crime has been so low and has continued to decline, which has opened up tremendous number of neighborhoods in the city that 5, 10, 15 years ago weren't ready for this type of development and investment. Secondly, as it pertains to something like a Coney Island or even some of the neighborhoods further out in Brooklyn, there's, the notion of the central business district is not as defined as it used to be. I find one of the trends that we see in downtown Brooklyn and in Brooklyn more broadly are the co-working office trends. People are not going to one central destination. They're really going to a variety of places to work. When you look at the amount of jobs that were created in the last decade, half of those jobs citywide were created in Brooklyn. So the employment is becoming more diffuse, which means, again, that more neighborhoods open up because proximity is not just about proximity to Midtown Manhattan or downtown Manhattan. It's proximity to what's going on in Long Island City, to downtown Brooklyn, to a number of other kind of second tier but equally as important business areas.
I would add to that because I think there's more institutional capital coming to downtown Brooklyn, for example, strengthening that core CBD.
Right. I mean, you have Jamestown.
Right.
You have others going there. I mean, because Brooklyn, as one would say, Brooklyn has grown. Marty Markowitz, my favorite poster boy, has done a great job.
He has.
Okay, and everyone else. I would really like to thank Lori specifically for bringing everyone out, the troops, for bringing me my headline makers who understand development. I'd like to thank Melissa, Pam, Melissa, and Lori, and I'll see you next week.